This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I are back with another football preview. And this week, we discuss the Big 12. Is there really a front runner in the Big 12, or is it going to be wide open? And then we also talk about the AFC South. Can the Texans continue the dominance? And what's going to happen to the Colts and the Jaguars? All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben. That's Josh. And we are here alive and well, surviving the heat, but not so much heat. I know there's heat back in Ohio, but here it's been like, it was like 95, then it was like been 70s. This week my dad's been here and it's been like 70s. Yeah, so it's been kind of weird, but hey, we're surviving this heat. And Josh, how are you doing? How's the job? How's the house? How's all that stuff happening for you?
Yeah, we're hanging in there. Let's see. This weekend I had all 3 days off, which I haven't had in over a month. Been getting a lot of extra shifts. At the new place, I got my air conditioning unit
Oh,
replaced. That
most
was
important thing.
something big. Yeah, yeah, definitely want to have that up and running by the time I actually get a key. But a lot of fellowship, a lot of rest and recovery over that time. Got to watch the home run derby. Had to work the night of the All-Star game, so I only saw the highlights of that. But can't complain about how things have been. Yeah, definitely surviving the heat. Got a little bit of swimming in. Even got a little bit of pink on the back of my shoulders, Ben. I haven't sunburnt yet, and I wouldn't even think that compared to what I'm used to, that was nothing. Like you already can't even tell that I had any kind of like skin color change.
No, hey, look, I get it. This past week I've been, my dad's been here. He's been here for 2 weeks. First week he was at camp. And by the way, when he was at camp, like on that Wednesday, it was like 62 degrees. It was ridiculous, right? And then he comes back here and it's like, okay, got a little warm, like when he first got here in the city, and then now it's like kind of cooled off. And he's actually, as we're recording this, he's at the airport hotel, and probably when this comes out, he'll be already in America. But yeah, it's kind of like it's a weird thing whenever my dad comes, because I always feel like he really feels like wants to feel like a tourist again, but he doesn't, so because he's been coming here for 14, 13 years or whatever it is. But yeah, that's kept me occupied, but I keep track of everything from baseball and the moves and free agency and everything like that. And I know we might briefly talk about the Browns situation. I don't know if we didn't really talk about it, but there's obviously that going on. There's the Steelers situation, but before we get all the football stuff, Josh, I do want to talk about the All-Star game, the baseball All-Star game. I know that Josh and I, we've had our frustrations with All-Star games. I feel like we're like the only show, one of the only shows that we hate All-Star games.
What they've
But
become is just an
yes,
absolute joke
it is.
anymore.
It's true.
But the baseball one still seems to hold
It seems there's
somewhat
value.
of
There's
a
value.
competitive, entertaining game that people actually want to tune in for. And it still is the most watched All-Star event in sports.
Besides the voting,
Topped
though.
out, I think,
Besides the
sure.
voting sometimes.
I think they topped out at 7.2 million viewers, which was almost double what the next most watched All-Star game was in the other sports. We know the Pro Bowl is a joke now in the NFL, the NBA All-Star event, not really anything anybody wants to watch anymore. And the NHL actually didn't even have one this past year.
Yeah,
The baseball one, yeah, it kicked off like it always does with the Home Run Derby on Monday, which is also one of the more fun All-Star events to watch because superstars actually play in it
yeah.
and compete. Uh, Cal Raleigh, of course, comes out and wins
Big
that over
dumper.
Junior Caminero, the big dumper. Yep. So that's only adding to what could be one of the most historic seasons, not just by a catcher, but by power hitters in general. But yeah, the All-Star game also looked like it was a good watch. I think the
Yeah,
National League did have a 6-0 lead at one
they
point.
did.
The American League fought back late. Stephen Kwan had the ground ball that brought in the game
Such a
tying
Cleveland
run.
way. Such a Cleveland way.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, Ben, 2007 or 8 when the All-Star game went to 15 innings and it
Yeah,
was
I
like a
do.
5-hour
I
game. That
do.
was that was also back when home field advantage in the World Series was on
Mattered.
the line.
Yeah.
So there was a lot to fight for there. But this year, I think this is the first year that they tried out this new extra inning format with the home run swing off.
Which also the worst guys were in that for the most part. Like just guys that like
Aaron Boone had Aaron Judge he could have picked, Cal Raleigh he could have picked, he could have picked Vlad Jr. He sends out Brent Rooker, who was in the home run derby. That dude swung a lot. He actually homered in the actual game, I think,
yeah.
too. But then you put out Randy Arozarena and
The
name
guy
escapes
from
me the third
Tampa, the
guy.
guy from Tampa Bay,
Oh yeah,
the first
Aranda.
baseman, yeah. Which I'm just like,
Aranda from
what are
Tampa
you
Bay, yeah.
doing?
The National League didn't even really put their best foot
No,
forward
but they
either.
knew
But I mean,
Schwarber was good though. They knew Schwarber was going to have it.
yeah, you knew Schwarber was gonna be in for one.
Can we also talk about how Skeens in an All-Star game has a 6-0 lead to get a win, and he still can't even get a win with a 6-0 lead? Like, poor
Still no run
Skins,
support there. Yeah, that
Skeens
guy
man.
just can't. He's not meant to get any wins anymore.
Dude, that dude's gonna be like the a Hall of Famer that only wins like 85 games, but he has an ERA of about like 190 because he just is on a terrible team, right?
Yeah,
But
3,000 career strikeouts, something like that.
yeah, it's really. I mean, and look, I loved it. One of the things I loved was the Clayton Kershaw. Um, for me, I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, again, I always hesitant with these like you throw a guy in there at the All-Star game because he's played for a really long time. I just feel like it kind of goes against like what the All-Star game represents. Like, dude, if there's been a dude that's made it 17 All-Star games back in the 70s and 80s, it's because he was that good for those many years.
Hmm.
So that's the only thing I always gripe about. But again, Kershaw's been a legend in our lifetime. Um, but yeah, I don't know how you feel about the swing off. I think it adds a flavor to the All Star game. I think it's better than what the NBA or the NFL has ever tried to do. At least they kept the baseball game a baseball game, and they said, look, if we get to extra innings, this is what we're going to do to determine the winner. And at the end of the day, I think it adds a little extra excitement for the fans, but doesn't take away, I think, fully from what we're trying to do, which still is a baseball game.
Yeah, to me the baseball All-Star game is the most entertaining one, but I think it was that much better when it was an actual game and there was
Yeah,
like
I
that
agree.
that home field advantage on the line and people really wanted to play. There was a lot of people that this year like passed on the invite, and that's how a guy like Jacob Mizorowski gets on the roster because like they asked 8 or 9 other pitchers before him,
They're like, nah.
and they were like, no, we don't want to do it. So not the way it was, say 20 years ago, but still pretty competitive, still very much like a baseball game, like you were just saying. And I think the home run swing off, I'd compare it to like penalty kicks in
Yeah,
soccer.
that's what I think. That's what I was considering it. Is like, let's see
It's like,
what
okay,
happens.
let's, send our three biggest bats out here and
Even though they
see,
didn't,
who can put it over the fence. Yeah,
even
and they
though they
didn't really
didn't.
put their three biggest, but if this was regular season baseball, I
I
assume
was
that's
hoping
what would
Ellie was going to be
happen.
out there. I was like, Ellie being out there been sick. Ellie
Yeah.
just going up there and hacking away. Um,
Yeah, so that's kind of how I see it as maybe this is even a test by Rob Manfred before he finally gets out of office to maybe make this the new extra inning format in baseball instead of having
oh,
the
okay.
guy
Let's
at
not go
second
that far.
base.
Yeah, let's not
You
go
you
that
don't you don't
far.
think that this came out as maybe a test?
No,
Like that's how this idea had to have come
I
out,
I
see how it gets
think
received in this stage.
I think if you do that, then you might as well just make banana ball a Major League Baseball at that point. Like I feel
It
like
would be a move like that. Like in an
yeah,
all-star format, like seeing it as penalty kicks, I don't really mind it too much, but you still got to keep the game, I
yeah,
think.
and that's why like the automated umpires, I've always been hesitant with that because I always feel like part of the game of baseball is human error, and I
Hmm.
think like having a bad ump is just kind of part of the game. And if you make it almost automatic, like it's gonna be really hard for batters to truly get a sense of every game is this is the same, this is the same. It's gonna be boring, But so I think it's the same way. It's like you can't overdo it to then where it makes baseball. Then everyone that's been saying, "Oh, banana ball sucks," it's like, well, it's the same thing as banana ball at that point. You just see what I'm saying? Like I feel
Yeah.
like that's kind of where I'm at with all these things.
More of the reactions I saw to the swing off actually were about how the old home run derby format needs to come back.
Oh, I
With
agree.
how everybody was
Yeah.
on their feet in the crowd, uh, the unlimited pitches, you don't have to swing at every single pitch. Like it just brought a lot of memories, I guess, from those days. And I was like, yeah,
Oh,
it was a pretty good event that way. I think that the timed rounds that we have now are, fun in their own way, but
well, it's just them trying to hurry the thing up. But I think for me, like I remember growing up, and I remember seeing like I remember seeing like no name dudes that I guess were not. I mean, Jose Abreu's not a no name dude, not Jose Abreu. Uh, way back who played for the Phillies. Anyways, Abreu, and there's other
Bobby Abreu.
guy, yeah, Bobby Abreu. There's guys like Hamilton, like some of these crazy things that happened in a home run derby. I remember like asking my dad, "Can I stay up a little later to watch the home run derby?" Like,
Yeah,
and now
that
I
I can
and now
remember
I
being
feel
like a
like
4 hour event.
the home run derby's done within 90 minutes, and it's like, well, that's not a home run derby anymore. That's just let's see how much we can pace ourselves.
You kind of can age out of it now too if you got to keep swinging all the time because it's a young man's game. You got to have endurance, and that's why
Yeah.
when I saw Caminero only had the seventh highest odds with the pop that he has in his bat. I'm like, I think he could surprise some
And
people
then you
and
got
even
Jazz,
finish
Jazz
as the
Chisholm, who
runner-up.
had 3 home runs and about 30 ground outs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
look,
He
I
didn't
look at
want to
it.
change up his swing. It was all about swag and vibes, and
The
that's
thing
what
that
three home
worries
runs gets you, I
me,
guess.
the thing that worries me is about anybody that gets in this, and we saw it with the Reds with Todd Frazier. Todd Frazier won the home run derby, and then the second half of the year he hit 4 home runs. Like he had no power. He couldn't hit because it messes up your swing. You can ask anyone. This
It
stuff
is a little
messes up your
bit.
swing.
I still see guys like Prince Fielder winning multiple home run derbies, Pete Alonso winning multiple home run derbies. It doesn't affect everybody the same way,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
of
think.
course, of course.
It
But
is
yeah,
going to be interesting seeing how Kyle Riley's second half goes.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm excited to see. I mean, look, I mean, he's got one of the greatest names of all time. Like I said, one of these days, once we get done with previews, maybe when we have one of these low days, we're gonna go through some of the craziest names in baseball history because the
They're
Big
all going to come
Dumper.
from like the
Oh
1890s.
yeah, it's dude. Some of those names back then, like I don't know what people were doing if they were just like sitting in a bar and just being like, "Oh, that was Nasty McWasty." That's who that is.
Yeah. Nasty McWasty. Jeez.
The
Yeah.
knuckleballer.
Or like the Shane Gillis bit. Old Curly.
Also, talk about Shane Gillis, man. The best part
Killed
was
it
when
at the
it.
ESPYs.
The best
Made a
part
lot
was
of people in that crowd
yeah,
uncomfortable with
the
his New York Liberty
oh
joke.
even better than that was the best. The joke was when he's like, "I want you all to welcome a four-time All-Star at WNBA,"
WNBA, also,
and
yeah.
and then everyone's clapping, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, that's what just never mind. That's just a joke. That's my friend's wife. I knew
That's
none of
just
you
my
knew
friend's wife. I knew
WNBA
none of you knew
players."
WNBA players. Yeah.
It's true though. Like it was a
Hmm.
fact, and
Yeah, he showed them all.
people were
Like,
like, "Well,
what are you guys cheering for?
he's
You don't know who
being
this is.
he's not being very nice to people." I'm like, "He's a comedian. Like, what do you
He even said, like,
expect?"
Disney let us do this. This is crazy. Yeah. Man of the
Oh
people, Shane
man,
Gillis
I
is.
love Shane Gillis.
We're trying to be men of the people today, too, knocking out these football
We
previews.
are.
We're continuing in our journey today on the college scene with the Big 12,
It's not really the
and
Big
then we'll
12.
finish up with the NFL and the AFC South. It's a conference and division that's very much so up for grabs, I'd say.
Yeah.
But we'll begin in the Big 12, Ben. Last week we did the ACC, and we thought there was an obvious clear-cut favorite at the top with Clemson. To me, there's an obvious clear-cut favorite at the top here, but the way at least the media is talking, it sounds like they might think there's two, three, maybe four teams that are in
Yeah.
the top tier of the Big 12. But to me, just the way it went last year, Arizona State, I think, has to be considered the front runner. Last year, they were projected to finish last by the media, which, funny enough, this year the Big 12 media didn't actually vote on how they thought the
Yeah.
finishes would be because I think they were like, oh, we don't want to look like fools again. But Arizona State comes out and wins the conference last year over Iowa State in the conference championship game. This year they got, I believe, 17, maybe it's 18 returning starters, but it's the most in all of Power Four football. Sam Lovett's back at quarterback. Jordan Tyson's back at receiver. And I think the other most important thing to consider is the whole entire coaching staff is back, which
Mhm.
how often do you see that in the college football era today, Ben? The schedule is
No.
a little bit more of a challenge, which we'll get into after this than it was last year. But I just want to hear your thoughts on Arizona State. If you're on board with me, them being the clear-cut top team in this conference, or if you think they could maybe be due for maybe some slump because this is also a program that really hasn't had any kind of hype or expectations around it, and
Yeah.
the boys could
I
maybe fall off a little bit.
I mean, for me, I've always thought that, it's hard to do when you haven't done it before, it's hard to do it twice in a row. Does that make sense? Because I feel
Yeah.
like, these big teams, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, like it's easy for these teams to kind of have successful year, and keep going. To me though, I look and like I've been looking at a lot of like previews and figuring out like what is out there and the stats and the data behind it. You know, I look at Arizona State, I'm like they're at the top of Big 12 in about everything. All the analytics, they're pretty much at the top. The only other team that's really up there with them is Kansas State, BYU, like those two teams really. Maybe Texas Tech because they spent a freaking gazillion dollars in the offseason. But I think Arizona State's a team I really see them. I think they can go back to back in the Big 12. I just they have to figure out what's their identity. They don't have Scattaboo anymore. They don't
No
have our
Cam
man
Scadaboo.
Scadaboo.
That's probably the most notable
And
loss from this team.
and we saw what happened when he was out of the game, whether that was a substitution or whatever. It didn't always look smooth. So the question is, what are they going to do? For me, I looked at the schedule. I really do think that maybe they're going to squeak out with this conference title. I think you're going to see them. I think they're going to have like a 10-2 season, 9-3 season, 10-2. I think 10-2 is probably more realistic. Um, but again, that's just my take. I do think they're going to come out of this conference as the head honcho, as they would say.
Yeah, yeah. Seeing how they adjust, I guess, to life post Cam Scadaboo is the big question. And
Yeah,
obviously, they got guys here that will be able to fill in. They got most of last year's guys back and all that coaching staff, which I absolutely love. The schedule is a little bit more challenging this year. So they got at Baylor, at Utah. They get to host Texas Tech. They're at Iowa State. Later in the year,
yeah,
they're at Colorado too. And then they, of course, got their in-state rival, Arizona, which is coming off a disappointing season last year. They're trying to get back on their feet. But a little bit more of a challenge than what it was last year, but also this year, all the expectations are there. All the teams are going to be given their best shot, and then we'll see how they handle the pressure. But to me, they're the top team I would expect in this conference. And maybe
yeah.
10-2 is going to be good enough to finish first, or at least get you the
Yeah, and
conference championship. It was
The Big
last year.
12, yeah, Big 12. It seems like the last few years you can go 10-2. Heck, you can even go not close to 9-3, and you can be at least up there in the top two or three. Just because the conference is either really bad at the bottom or it's just so generic throughout the middle.
Yeah, part of the reason why the conference ended the way it did last year is because the bottom teams were just pulling off these late upsets at the end of the year. Like the top tier teams this year have to start playing a little bit more like it, I think.
Yeah,
There can't be any of those surprise upsets, but that's also what makes this conference so fun to watch. Like as a just a regular college football fan, like seeing this conference, how some of the games can go.
dude, you, it, and I said this before the show started, and I do want to say this before we get too far into the Big 12. The Big 12 is just weird. Like the Big 10, okay, you have a few West Coast teams. Okay, a little weird, but at least there's like four in that area, right? The ACC, at least you have California and Stanford. They're like next to each other. In the Big 12, you have a team in Cincinnati, West Virginia, Florida, and I'm trying to think where
Then
else
you got
they.
your Great Plains area,
Yeah,
you got like your Kansas, your
and then
Iowas, your Texas
Arizona.
schools, but then Arizona, yep.
It's just a weird
And then
conference
a
now.
couple in Utah.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah. One of the teams that I think could maybe contend for that crown along with Arizona State, you brought him up, is Texas Tech.
Yeah,
I
they
think
spent a
last
lot
year,
of money.
yeah, they spent a lot of money, Ben. I think the whole entire NIL collective over there is spending $242 million on the Wamba Football Center. I think as far as like all sports, they're spending more money than all other schools. I mean, that includes, your Ohio States, your Miamis, some of
Mm.
these other big money programs out there. So they're definitely getting buy-in from supporters. Uh, they have the second best transfer portal class coming in this year. Joey McGuire's been coming together, putting something special together. Some people thought last year might be the year. It was a little bit disappointing. Tyler Shuck wasn't over there anymore, and uh, hang on one second here. But yeah, it was a season that had maybe some expectations that they could be a surprise, but this year a lot more people are thinking that this will be the season. Thoughts on Texas Tech?
Um, they have stupid money. They have stupid money.
They do.
Um, that Texas money, man. That that Texas money is something else. Um, I love some of the guys they do have on this team. I will am a little biased because they are I will say that they are my dynasty team for college football this year. So I am a little biased in the sense that I'm trying to get Tavian St. Clair to leave Ohio State and come down to Lubbock, Texas, and just have a little fun. Because I feel like the Bell Fountain colors, it works well with Texas Tech. But anyways, um, dude, the interesting thing about Texas Tech is like they have like these guys they went out and got. They have I think Bailey from I think he was at Stanford.
Yes, that was a big
He's
one
the
that they pulled in the
edge.
spring
Yeah, he's like
for
an
pass
edge,
rush.
kind of
Yep.
an edge guy. You have Hudson who's back, who's going to be a freak. I think you give him time to develop. At receiver, you have you have some other key guys like you look throughout like there's some linebackers that I really like. There are some, they have their offensive line is solid. I wouldn't say is amazing, but it's solid for Big 12. I mean, Big 12, you don't need a great offensive line, I don't think. They have a couple running backs that I think are really good in space. So for me, it's just like with Texas Tech is like it's kind of the same thing we said about um, Colorado. Like, can they put it together? Can they put all this money where their mouth is? Um, so for me, I think Texas Tech is a great environment. I've always loved watching their games. The air raid offense is always something to watch. So I'm very interested to see what they do this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they run the ball more this year. I think you have to have more balance now in the modern day college football. And yeah, we'll see what they do. But it's a lot of money, man. And you gotta if you don't do well, like we saw in our league this year in Hungary, a team won the championship, and that's because they bought half their team, right? So it's possible to have a great year, but you have to be able to do it from the start. And I still see them finishing, I think, second or third at the lowest third.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of new faces on the offensive line, a lot of new faces in the secondary. The running back room will be a little bit more deep this year, but yeah, when you bring in that many new people, it has the potential to either blow up in your face because there's not a lot of buy-in because there's not homegrown talent, or it could look really well, like what Ole Miss has looked like with what that one Florida State team looked like that went undefeated. But just running through Texas Tech's schedule real quick here. They got uh oh, hang on, I went to the wrong team here. I pulled up Iowa State instead.
Oh, how dare you?
Sorry, folks, for the 10-second delay here, but Texas Tech. Uh, so they got out of conference pretty easy, going against AR Pine Bluff, Kent State, and Oregon State. In conference, they're going to be some of the more notable ones will be at Utah, at Arizona State, at Kansas State. So
Ooh,
that's three hard road games right
yeah.
there that they're going to have to deal with. Um, but they get BYU at home, they get UCF at home, they get Oklahoma State at home, they get Kansas at home. So it's going to be the big question will be, I guess, how these new pieces gel together and can they maybe pull one or two of these tough road wins?
Yeah, yeah. That's tough. That's a tough road. That can be a tough road, especially in the Big 12, man. Big 12, you never know what happens. I feel like that's the
Yeah,
conference you never know really what happens from a week to week.
yeah, yeah. Since a lot of these teams are out west, that's something where it's like the game could start at 10 p.m. and you wake up the next morning, you're like, What the heck? It
Wait,
went to
they were
five
up tw-
overtimes.
they were up
There were
21
60
to
points by
10.
each team.
And
Yeah,
for me, it's weird because it'll be like I'll go to bed and then I'll be waking up. I'm like, the game's still going on.
that's right. In your time zone, yeah, that can be a
Wait,
case.
he threw 78 passes in a game?
Yeah. Um, so the other team that I would throw in this top tier uh is going to be Kansas State.
Oh yeah, they have one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
One of the best, yeah. There's not a whole lot of top returning quarterbacks this year, but Avery Johnson's definitely got to be one of them. Last year he came in as the face of the future of the program, which is why they were fine with Will Howard leaving.
Mm.
A little bit of discussion about dark horse Heisman candidate, player of the conference, that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't say he necessarily lived up to the hype, but there was definitely a lot of flash shown, a lot of great moments there shown by the kid. Ended up finishing last year pretty solid. There just, of course, some of those moments where it's like, what the heck are you doing here? That
Yeah,
new young
yeah, yeah,
quarterbacks
yeah.
can have sometimes. But yeah, Kansas State's one of those teams that I think you got to look at and say, you know what? Why can't they win it? They maybe have they got a tough start to their schedule. They're going out to Europe to watch or to play Iowa State. So maybe you can catch that game, Ben. Tell us how it
Yeah.
goes. They got a home game against Army, and then
Which are
they
never
got a
easy
road
to play
game.
those guys.
Yeah, they get have to go to Baylor, but they get to host Texas Tech. Uh, they go to Utah. They host Colorado. They avoid Arizona State here. So, what they got on the roster, you got to think, a couple if they can get through that first part of the schedule, maybe the conference isn't in reach for these guys.
Yeah, it's always tough. I mean, I will say Playing the academies is hard to do. I mean, just because of the way their offense is set up,
It's
but
just annoying.
it's just very annoying. Yeah, it's just annoying to go against. Dude, Kansas City, I've always loved Avery Johnson. I think that he was overhyped last year, and I think it hurt him. I think in my opinion, I think it really hurt the way he played because I feel like he tried to live up to that hype. When you look at him now, it's like, look, no one's really talking about him, I guess, in the big landscape of things. There's other guys they're talking about. So I think it's a perfect way for him just to get back to what he does great, which is he's a great runner. He can also throw the ball really well. So I think Kansas State needs to lean on that. Look, it's been one of those schools that ever since I was a kid, you never really knew a lot about, but they were always solid, right? Like I never knew a lot about Kansas State growing up, but then you're like, that's a weird uniform combo, huh? Interesting team. So for me, I think it's going to be an interesting dilemma to see what happens this year. But I do think they're going to be up there. I think they're going to finish more. I think in that second to third, maybe they'll slip to fourth, but I think they'll have like an 8-4, 9-3 season. I think would be maybe even 10-2 would be a
Yeah.
valid spot.
Yeah, I think that front seven on the defensive side, they should have one of the better defensive lines in the conference. Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson running behind Johnson. Of course, he's going to contribute to that run game as well. So, Kent State, yeah, they're that last team that I'd say I think could seriously contend for this conference. But I think the second tier also, if enough bounces to the ball go right, could maybe uh, eye for this conference too. So starting off there with those teams. I'm gonna throw Baylor out here, Ben. Baylor
Mm.
is gonna have one of the better offense, had one of the better offenses in the country last year, and they bring their quarterback back with that. Uh, Defense last year, Dave Aranda, defensive guy, took over last year. I think that was an adjustment that maybe they'll have some continuity there. The thing with Baylor, like I was just saying with Kansas State, they got a tough start to the schedule too. They host Auburn and then they're at SMU for two
Ooh.
non-conference games. But then they got to play Arizona State week 4. That is at Baylor at least. They get to host Kansas State, so another hard conference game that they get to have on their home field, and they get to host Utah.
Mm.
So most of the hard games are going to be at their place, but like I said, those three or those first 4 games, it's going to be tough, and you hope that that doesn't like put a damper on the team if they come out of that and they're 2-2.
Mhm.
Like, man, the season's already over. Like, I don't know, but yeah, Baylor would be one of those teams I'd say don't sleep on these guys. I wouldn't put them in that clear-cut upper tier with those other 3 that we just talked about, but there's enough there that I could see enough things going the right way. We could be seeing Baylor play for a conference championship.
Yeah, I mean, I like Baylor. I looked at their team. I mean, having a quarterback come back in this day and age is you would say is a rarity, but it is important, and I think Baylor's due, man. The Baylor is due. They've been through some really rough years.
They
Um,
really
I,
have.
I do think they're more of an 8-4 team. I think they're going to be a solid team in that mid pack of the Big 12. I do believe the Big 12 this year. There's a lot of like maybe the top seven is pretty solid. And you understand who it is, and then there's this huge drop off with the rest of the teams. I do think there's a bigger gap between the better teams and upper echelon teams than there are the bottom tier.
hmm Another name to keep in mind too, Bryson Washington, their running back. He had the best season of any freshman running back in Baylor history last year with 1,028 yards and 12 touchdowns.
Hmm.
So not just having a good quarterback come back with Sawyer Robertson, but you also got a young running back that could be making
Yeah,
some noise too. Uh, Also brought in Calvin Simpson Hunt from Ohio State
yeah, they
to
did. He's a
strengthen
freak,
the
man. He's a
secondary. Yeah,
freak.
yeah, I know that's one that you guys probably would have liked to
Would have
have
liked
held
him
on
keep,
to.
but hey,
Yeah,
I mean, when you bring in Devin Sanchez as the next guy, I think Simpson Hunt realized, yeah, I probably should go somewhere else because I ain't gonna play. That's kind of the way I think that all went out.
potentially, yeah. Uh, this next team was definitely a surprise last year. Maybe has a little bit more eyes on. You just never know with these guys, Ben. It's Iowa State. The Cyclones, you never know
This
what
team.
version you're going to get with Matt Campbell's program out here, man.
It's
But
probably why the reason Matt Campbell's still at Iowa State because his teams are never consistent enough for another school to go, hey, we want you, Matt.
yeah, like last year, they had as many injuries as they did, and they still were in the conference championship. Uh, I think there were maybe 13 guys that all missed time on the defense last year or something
That's
like that.
wild.
Trying to find that, where I found that specific stat as I talk here. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put Iowa State on this second tier too. Another reason for that would be getting a quarterback back. Everybody really liked Rocco Becht last year. Returns for his junior season. Uh, and has passed for 6,600 yards and 48 touchdowns in 3 seasons so far. So just looking to improve on completion percentage. I think he completed 59% of his passes last year. So you'd like to see that go up a little bit. He's got some good transfer receivers coming in. So hopefully those guys can uh, be some solid pass catchers and targets for him. Iowa State also has 106 total starts returning to the offensive line. So that's something that you like to
That's
see too,
huge.
as
Huge in
continuity
college
and
football.
experience. Yep. So yeah, the entire linebacker room last year was having guys just drop all the time. But hopefully those guys, if you're an Iowa State fan, can get some health over there. Uh, and you'd like to see a little bit more of a pass rush. They had 17 sacks in 14 games last year. I'd like to see that go up a little bit. And maybe would be one of those things where it's like if they can, you know, bump that up another 10, maybe that's the difference between them finishing, a couple places higher in the
Yeah.
conference.
Yeah.
Iowa State, like we already said, they got that game overseas against Kansas State. They also got Iowa on their home field week 3.
Rivalry
Uh,
game.
yeah, they'll have Arizona State on their home field later in November. But outside of those, there's not really a whole lot of spots that I could see them getting tripped up in. So the schedule does favor them as well.
Yeah, I see them as like an 8-4 team, which is I feel like every year for Iowa State. But look, Iowa State's hard to recruit to. Let's be honest, Josh. We
It
both
is.
have been to Iowa, and Iowa is one of the most boring places to drive through. And look, unless you're in a bigger city, like in a lot of, look, I know that might seem like, oh, you're ripping on Iowa. I'm like, no, I'm just stating facts that 18, 19-year-old football players that want to go play football are not going to want to go play in a place that unless they see a winning culture. Now, Matt Campbell's done a great job as create a winning culture. I just don't know how long you keep doing this. Oh, we're 8-4, 7-5. Like, is that what you want to be known as at Iowa State? So I think this is a big year to maybe jump over expectations and then hopefully contain that for the next years to come.
Yeah. The other team I'll put on here, and it's just because of their history that I'm not going to count them out. Nobody's a bigger Utah Utes fan than me on this podcast.
For some
I put
reason.
I
For
put
some
them in my
reason.
top 5 before in power rankings before and been stubborn enough to not drop them out when I should have. But last year coming in, I thought they were kind of like how I view Arizona State this year. They were the heavy, like overwhelming favorite to me. Like, oh wow, they're coming off winning 2 Pac-12 conference titles in the last 3 years. They're going to come in here to a lesser conference and just run it. But then everything fell off the rails. Cam Rising had another injury, surprise, surprise. A lot of other struggles on that offense. It was one of the worst offenses last year in college football, which is why they finished as bad as they did. And Utah's always known as more of a defensive program
Yeah.
under Kyle Whittingham, but the offense just couldn't get anything going last year. And Cam initially was going to come back this year, but announced medical retirement, I think in the spring, which I think is going to be so great for this program to finally be able to move on from him and like actually make a plan at quarterback.
And they got a
This
guy
year,
from New Mexico who's a freak.
yes, Devin Dampier from New Mexico will be
He
coming
is
over
a
here. He's
freak.
he's a solid dual threat option. He rushed for 1,100 yards last year, threw for 2,700, had looks like 31 total touchdowns through the air and on the ground. And his offensive coordinator is coming over here too, so a guy that's familiar with his game. But the way that the schedule looks, Ben, and I'll get into it, I think Utah, this is going to be more of a rebuilding and recovery year for them, trying to get
Yeah.
back to the way Utah football is. But just the pedigree that Utah has in the history over there, they just seem a little bit more likely to be able to deal with chaos than maybe some other programs. There's just like a
Yeah.
lot of I think rock solid foundation over there.
No, I think Utah is one of those programs where it almost reminds me of I think of an Iowa where Iowa for many years was that kind of that, or even Wisconsin where it was like that staple team that in that conference every year was near the top, maybe not the top, but near the top, and they had a bad down year and they had to figure out what they had to do. Wisconsin hasn't really bounced back from that.
Yeah,
Iowa has slowly started bouncing back from that. Utah, this is the year where you go, you know what? If we go 7-5, 8-4, that's okay. If we go 6-6, but hey, it's still fine. 7-5, 8-4. I think with a quarterback who I had him on my fantasy team. I mean, this dude literally was averaging like, you know, 100 yards a game almost. I mean, this guy was a freak of nature, and he played in New Mexico, right? So, what are you going to be able to do with him at the Big 12 level? Is he ready for the Big 12 level? But look, we've learned in this world of college football, if you can run for 1,100 yards, I don't care who it's against, that's impressive. And then throw for 2,700 yards is also impressive. So, for me, I just think it's Utah figuring out their identity. What is it going to be now for the next 3-4 years versus just throwing something together and hope it works?
Right. So this is where it gets tough. They host Texas Tech, they host Arizona State, they go to Baylor, they host Kansas State. They're playing like all the big boys here.
Yeah.
Then they also got UCLA out of
I think
conference,
they I
which
think they steal I think they steal two of those somewhere. I think they steal two of those.
there should be some, yeah. Uh, so yeah, I say that schedule is going to be a little rougher on this year's team, but I like the culture and the foundation there that maybe they can deal with it better than some other teams. So that's six teams that we've gone through, Ben, and we could do this for all of them, but we decided that we're not going to do that. So we'll just wrap up the rest of this conference here with maybe a couple notes on some of the other teams here. I know BYU's moving on from Jake Ratzliff at quarterback. That
Which
whole
is scary for
situation
them
was
figuring out,
wild.
yeah.
Yeah, figuring that out. Arizona does have Noah Fifita back, but
Who's
there was
dropped
a
off
lot of
a
disappointment
bomb.
last year.
Huge.
Yeah. Yeah, no more Tet over there at receiver either. He just went to the NFL, so losing him. Kansas, Jalen Daniels will be back at quarterback, but
They have
you know, you
nothing
know,
else, I don't think.
not really a whole lot else going on over there. Will Oklahoma State be able to bounce back? They went 3-9 last year. We've
I mean,
never really
Gundy
seen them
Gundy
be
took a
that bad.
Gundy took a pay cut so he didn't lose his job.
Yeah, took a pay cut so he couldn't lose his job, or so he wouldn't lose his job. Yeah, UCF, they got Scott Frost back, but with
Yay.
Gus Malzahn leaving to be a coordinator on another program in state, kind of makes you wonder what's going on internally over there.
True.
And then Colorado, Ben, moving on from Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter. They got Caden Salter coming in at quarterback. They got Juju, that true freshman at quarterback. Also, both of them were at media day speaking, so it could be an interesting race. But I think a lot of people will be interested in seeing how Dion and this program move on from those guys. They didn't bring in as many transfers as they did the last
That is
couple
true.
seasons,
They
but
didn't.
they also don't really have like that top end star power like Shador and Travis that could really carry and kind of like I guess cover some of the holes that were very visibly there on the offensive line and defense.
Yeah, I agree. I think to me, out of those teams you mentioned, I think like Arizona has a lot to prove. I think Colorado also has a lot to prove. Like these two teams, they have to find a way. I think Arizona has to find a way to bounce back. I think look at Oklahoma State. They hadn't had a losing season in like what 16 years or whatever it was. So
Very long time. They've been consistent.
yeah. So for me, it's like it's really down to those three teams. It's like, can Gundy turn it around? Is he willing to make changes? You look at Arizona. Can they just find the Fafita that was there 2 years ago? Can they get that guy back? And then you look at really most of these teams, but specifically Colorado. Can Dion actually put in effort and coach and be there without having to worry about everything else with his son and his sons and stuff? So for me, Colorado is that team that they could win 8 games easily, but I think they might only win 6, and that's if they're lucky. I think there's gonna be a lot of growing pains.
I think six would even be like fine with this team. That's bowl eligible. That's coming off, like I said, losing two star players over there. The other thing about Colorado, Ben, we've heard a lot of talk from players and coaches alike over there the last 2 years. This year they've been pretty quiet,
They've been very quiet.
very quiet. So I don't know if maybe that humility will pay dividends later on, but yeah, that's I guess my final thoughts. Maybe just a couple little I guess questions about some of those other teams in the conference, but I didn't have any other Big 12 thoughts.
No, neither do I. Neither do I.
So why don't we move on to the AFC South, which was, I think, the worst offensive division in the NFL last year. If
Which is
you love
shocking
watching
for some of those
football,
teams.
you probably hated watching this division. Outside the Houston Texans, there was bad offense after bad offense after bad offense. Excuse me. Will Levis was a turnover machine, one of the most turnover-prone seasons In history, we saw Anthony Richardson leave games because he was
Ah,
tired, and then also deal with
that
another
Florida
throwing
product, man.
shoulder injury.
That
Yeah, who would
Florida
have thought that that
product.
deal would have blown up? And then Trevor Lawrence coming off the record contract, he comes out. Granted, does have some injuries that he has to deal with, but only wins 3 games. But the Houston Texans won 10 games for a second straight season in a row. Very different fashion from when they did his rookie
Oh,
season.
oh man,
Yeah.
I have something to say on
So
that. Ooh.
yeah. So my thoughts on Houston's season last year. They did everything that you would like to see them do for a rookie quarterback. They went out and got some weapons like Stephon Diggs. They went out and got Joe Mixon. The offensive line was supposed to be, you would think, a little better than it was, but it ended up being really the biggest problem. They allowed 8 sacks in that playoff game against the Chiefs. So a lot of guys on that offensive line are now gone. I think they brought in 4 new players for that unit. There won't be any more Stephon Diggs this year because he went to the Patriots. There may not be any Tank Dell at all this year because of the injury that he had last year. They did bring in Nick Chubb, so him and Mixon will be in the backfield. You got Stroud still there, who's solid, and I think has proven that he can, manage the game very well and uh, make up for a lot of lack thereof talent elsewhere. But the defense also a staple. Uh, Love what D'Amico Ryans is doing over there. You got some young studs on that unit like Will Anderson, but I think we had a lot of high expectations for them on our show when we previewed them last year. You thought that Super Bowl was within reach. I thought AFC Championship game was within reach. Didn't come close to that for some obvious holes, but yeah, let me hear your
Uh,
your thoughts on Houston last
I,
year coming into this season.
I'm just tired of people saying that CJ Stroud took a step back. I'm sorry. The man led
The
his team.
numbers, the yards, the
Yeah, no,
touchdowns, the
I
completion
understand
percentage,
that.
all were steps down.
I
Whether it
understand
was his
that.
fault or not's another question, but
That's where I'm getting.
yeah,
It was not his fault. The amount of injuries this man had to go through. The offensive line, by the way, played awful. I mean,
very bad.
we hyped up that offensive line going into that last year. We hyped it up so much. They looked terrible. The defense did not help out at times, and the guy still gave them 10 wins and helped them lead to 10 wins, playoff team again. And for me, I just I don't know. It's so frustrating because I think the Texans have so much upside and they're still so young. And with a young head coach, I think people should stop like ripping CJ Stroud as much, like, and just like, how about let's like look at the whole team and the fact how far they've come. We all remember when the Houston Texans were like the laughing stock of the league for how many years. The fact that CJ
Hmm.
Stroud has done this even better than when Deshaun was there. Like he's got 2 consistent years. Yes, the numbers are down a little bit. Yeah, the interceptions are up a little bit. But look, the dude's 22 years old. Like, so I think if you look at it from the broad perspective, I think this is the most consistent team in the AFC South, and I think they're going to win the AFC South by a few games. Is in my
Yeah.
prediction.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of like when we were talking about the AFC East a week ago. It seems like it's the Bills division far and away, and everyone else, it's just kind of like who's going to finish second. And that's how I feel about this division here. Just a couple points on the schedule. It does start off rough. They got to go to LA to play the Rams, and then they get to host the Bucks on their field. Then they got 2 division games with the Jags and Titans before they got to go to Baltimore and Seattle. Just a couple other games sprinkled in here. They got to play the 49ers this year, the Broncos. They got to play the Bills. Got to play the Chiefs. They got to play the Chargers. So it still actually shakes up to be, I think, one of the easier schedules. Or not one of the easier, but more middle of the pack. Not as difficult as like what
Mm-hmm.
maybe some of the other teams
Yeah.
that finished well last year had to deal with. But uh, I guess that's what I'm looking for this year is can the offensive line take a step up? Because if it can, not only are you going to get more time for CJ to work, but you're going to open up more holes for what could be a really solid running back room if Nick Chubb can stay healthy, and then you got Mixon over there. Then both of them splitting carries too, not having to be like the main guy. I think for guys that are about 30 years old, that's going to be nice for each of those
And
guys as well.
and as Browns fans, after what's been happening this past week with the Browns, you are really wishing you didn't let go of Chubb. That's all I gotta say. If you don't know what we're talking about, look it up online. That's all we'll say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. It's hopefully as more info comes out, it's looking a little better there. But as far as this division goes, Ben, I was willing to make the bold prediction last week that I think the Patriots will finish second.
Oh gosh,
I don't have any bold
I
predictions
do.
on any of these other three teams. I was trying to talk myself into all of them being like second. Like, okay, if they were to finish second, what would that look like? Okay. I wanted to say the Titans, but there's just too many holes all around. But Cam Ward coming in, you know, top quarterback prospect. He can handle pressure. He's athletic. He's mobile. They got some pieces around like Calvin Ridley. They got Tony Pollard in the backfield. They have an offensive line that they're building towards, and they also got Callahan coaching that unit. So you know they're
Mhm.
getting coached well. Guys like Skoronski that we really loved from Northwestern a couple years ago, J.C. Latham. They go out and get Kevin Zeitler. It's just that defense. I really couldn't like convince myself on the defense entirely. Even though Mike Vrabel's taken over as a defensive guy, I think there's going to need to be some time to get some more pieces that he can work with. But that's the Titans kind of to me. The Jags, I was like, can Trevor Lawrence stay healthy? Will Travis Hunter end up being like that solid weapon on offense to pair with Brian Thomas Jr.? But there's just so much newness to the coaching staff. You got a first-time head coach, first-time offensive coordinator, first-time defensive coordinator, first-year GM. And then with the Colts, just like that quarterback room, man. Like I don't care if it's Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. It doesn't affect my take on them at all where they finish, depending on who's quarterback. I hate them both. But that's just kind of a couple like quick hitters there on all three of them. And I think I finally settled in on maybe the Jags barely finishing second place here. What about you?
Oh yeah, I had the Jags finish. I think Jags are the closest talent wise to be consistent contender in the AFC
Yeah, I
North
think I think if we're
or
talking
South. Sorry.
upside, the Jags definitely got the highest upside out of all three.
I think the Colts, and if they keep Anthony Richardson around, which I think that was, I look back at that draft. I don't know how they didn't see some of these red flags that they have now.
They were pretty obvious.
I don't know if Anthony Richardson starts another game for the Colts. I'll be 100% honest with you. And if that's the case, I don't see them finishing higher than third. Um, and yeah,
Yeah,
I just think the Jaguars have so much more there, and I think they're so close because they just added a few more good pieces with the pieces they had. So I think the Jaguars they could finish, a 9-8 or a 10-7. I could see that happening. I don't see the Colts winning more than 5 games. Personally, I don't see that, and then that leaves you with the Titans, and I think the Titans because of yeah they have some holes, but they have a lot of young talent. I think they're going to be also another team that wins like 5 games, maybe 6 if best. So for me, I think the second tier team in this division is obviously the Jaguars, and then the other two you can mix around.
yeah. Like I said, there is a lot of uncertainty with some of the coaching staff, but I guess if you're looking at the potential here, Liam Cohen was coaching Baker Mayfield last year, and Mayfield had a career year with 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence is that guy that's still like riding on potential, being a number one overall pick, and I think got that contract mostly because of potential rather than what he's actually done on the field. Because when you look at his numbers, there's really not a whole lot of difference between him and Daniel Jones.
No,
So
agreed. Yeah.
can Cohen, I guess, maybe help Lawrence realize that potential? Uh, can Brian Thomas Jr. capitalize on last year's success? And can Travis Hunter also be a compete?
Duval.
That is right. He said that quote too.
Duval. Sorry. It's just the
Yeah.
creepiest thing I've ever seen. So creepy.
It's looking like the talk coming out of camp is that Hunter's going to be primarily used at
Oh, but
receiver,
he's not
but
going to
could be in.
play. But he's not going to play for it. I'm like, I knew that was a lie. Sorry, I'm going to go on a rant on that.
There's no
When
way
he
that
said
he's
he
a
was
full-time
yeah when
starter.
he said he wasn't gonna play for the team if they didn't play in both ways. It's like, dude, you have to be smart to understand like you're an asset to them, and if they play you both ways, that's a risk to losing the asset for a certain period of time. What do they need more help in? I think he's a better receiver than DB. I'm not saying he's a bad DB. Every time I've said that, someone rips me for it. I'm not saying he's a bad DB, but I do not think he's at a all pro caliber level or can get there at a DB level. I think receiver is where his ceiling is. I think there could be a chance, kind of like what you see with switch hitters. There's a time where they realize, look, I can't hit right handed, so I'm going to stick to left handed. I think there's a chance where he's in his career and he goes, look, maybe I should just stick to receiver or maybe I should just stick to DB. I think there is a chance for that. I hate for it because I want him to succeed, but it's also just like, dude, you're kind of crazy if you're going to try to take this on in the
Yeah.
NFL.
Yeah, it's looking like the talk is maybe a 75 to 25 split. 75% of his snaps on offense, 25% of them on defense. Obviously not playing as many snaps on both sides
True.
like he was
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Colorado. There will be some time off, but just as far as like how it's split up, maybe more so on offense than get in defense and spot situations. My thoughts on the Colts, like I said, it
That's your
really doesn't
thoughts.
matter to me.
That's your
It
thoughts.
it really doesn't matter to me who's playing quarterback. Anthony Richardson will have, a great throw every now and then, but completed 47% of his passes last year. Has two injuries on his throwing shoulder already, so it's not even like is he good enough? It's like is he even healthy enough to even
Yeah.
get that kind of performance out of him? I don't know. But it's looking like he might not quite be ready week one. Daniel Jones is at least going to be the guy by default to start anyways. I like the wide receiver room they're putting together with Downs and Pierce and Pittman
Hmm.
over there, but
Yeah.
again, it's just I don't really like who's throwing to them.
It's a
Would like
fact.
to see Latu break out on the pass rush this year. And then they went out and I think they got a couple pieces to improve the secondary. Ballard was pretty aggressive, their GM, and getting some guys to strengthen that unit. So it this Colts team, if the quarterback can just, I guess, get some kind of production out of it, they could be second place. I just don't believe in the quarterback, but everything else at least is looking like it's closer to maybe being able to contend for second in this division. But the quarterback I think is really going to hold him back.
No, I
Then like
agree. I
yeah.
agree.
Like I was saying with the Titans, I think that they could be exciting here in a couple years with what they're putting together. We'll see if Cam Ward is all that. I've seen some people making the comparison. Maybe the Titans could do what the Washington team with Jaden Daniels did last year, but like I said, I think there's just too many holes around, too many questions for me to go that far. But it would be that kind of a jump. I think Washington had won 3 or 4 games the year before when they took
Yeah.
Daniels, and then obviously last year make the playoffs and even win a game. But yeah, keep an eye on the Titans. I think that having Cam Ward in there instead of Will Levis will, win them a couple more games. Just that change in itself, but just going to need a little bit more time to get things going over there, I think.
No, I agree. I think, look, I just think the Colts are just they're lost right now, and until they figure it out, it's gonna be long for them. And I think the Titans, like, they're in the right direction. And look, I've been in Nashville. Nashville's my probably like my favorite city probably one of my top five favorite cities outside of a lot of the cities in Ohio that I've been to, and of course Budapest here. Nashville's a great place. You know this. It's a great place to have sports teams. And like, look, the Titans, Nashville natives deserve a winning team because I think it just creates that Nashville vibe. And I think getting Ward to be his most peak level means protecting him, giving him assets to go out and do what he can do. And so for me, I just think they're going to be better than the Colts this year, and that's just because I don't believe in the Colts. Like I don't think the last time I believed in them was when 18 was quarterback. So it's been a
Mm,
long time.
yeah. Yeah, we'll see what Brian Callahan can do with this squad this year, entering year two over here as the head coach. But that was everything I had for the division. Uh, we did have a couple headlines, I guess, NFL wise that we want to talk about, and we just had that come through while we were talking about TJ Watt,
Yeah.
that extension. What was it? 3 years,
3 years,
123
123
million?
million. Yeah, guaranteed.
123 million. Yep. The highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history.
Just topped on Garrett's. Like he just passed
Yeah.
Garrett's. So,
Yeah. We had Crosby get his deal, then we had Garrett get his deal. Now Watt got his deal,
dude,
and I'm
the
sure the
Bengals
next
are
one.
screwed. The Bengals are screwed.
They once again waited too long because
They are
I was just gonna
screwed.
say it, Hendrickson's gonna be commanding more
Oh
than this
man.
now. It's like, man, you had to pay Chase so much more because you waited too long, and you paid Higgins so
I love
much
it
because you
though.
waited too
I
long.
just
Like you
laugh and
gotta
love it.
just get there and get it over with, man.
And the guy they spent a first round pick on might go back to college.
On top of that, yeah, you might lose Hendrickson because you won't pay him, and you might lose Stewart because you won't pay him just like a normal freaking team will.
Now I will say because of the Browns paying their guy their second round pick a full guaranteed deal. Now there's 30 of the 32 draft picks in the second round have not signed their deal, which is just I'm like, dude, just sign the deal, man. Just sign
Insane.
it. It's insane. Um, so yeah, that's the big news. Obviously, there's the Browns news. We won't go into details with it just because it's kind of a sensitive thing. But
Sensitive,
basically,
and we don't really know what's true
yeah,
or not,
and
but
basically, he
Quinshon
possibly did something.
Judkins
Yeah,
was arrested.
yeah, did something bad. This was after people have said that. Well, this stems from Ohio State. I don't believe so. My dad and I actually were talking about this today. I think Ohio State has a great culture, and I think what happens is you've seen this with Hall as well at the Browns. When guys leave, and they don't have that culture to be around them for the last 5 months, 6 months, or whatever, it does affect them because this is obviously when the time span it happened. Um, Look, I don't know what's with Browns drafting a high state second round draft picks, but they just need to figure it out. I'm still mad that they didn't draft Travion Henderson because he was sitting right there, and we know his character and everything. And again, not saying that Christian Johnson did anything wrong. We don't know. We don't know
Yeah,
what's
still
true, what's
waiting to
not.
see.
But if this
But
is an effect, this makes the Chubb not dealing with Chubb and getting him back on a small deal look a lot worse because now you're putting yourself in the hands of a fourth round draft pick and two dudes that we both know cannot run to save their lives.
shoot, yeah, Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson doesn't sound as fun as Quinshon Judkins and
Yeah.
Dylan Sampson.
Yeah. And so look, it's gonna be interesting. So obviously we'll talk about this more in the future. But also one thing that also just happened we were finishing up here is Damian Lillard is heading back to the Trailblazers on a 3-year, $32 million deal.
Really
Yes. So he is heading
coming
back
home.
to the Trailblazers, which means it looks like this is going to be his final stop, and he is
It
going to
probably
call it
will be, and
quits.
we're not even sure how much he'll really play this year with that Achilles.
Yeah.
But
So it is a
that
coming
that
home
could be,
party.
yeah.
And there is rumors. Josh, I want to get your take on this before we finish the show up. Your take on the rumors of LeBron James heading back to Cleveland. What do you think the possibility before this man retires, which we think is probably in the next year or two, is kind of the census?
Hmm.
Do you think there is a small possibility where either he gets bought out by the Lakers because he's just tired of waiting and them like, well, we're going to look forward to with Doncic, which is great, fine, whatever they want to do. Is there a chance he gets bought out? And if so, do you think he decides to play those final how many ever games in Cleveland to kind of capstone that career?
There's always the
Of
possibility. I
course.
mean, we didn't think that he'd come back even that next time. And the way that he went out to LA at the time, I was like, yeah, this is all about business. This is about growing his brand deals, the entertainment stuff, Space Jam 2, like getting more of those
Hmm.
opportunities, living the LA lifestyle. Uh, and I'm not really sure how he expected the city or the team, I guess, to take him in, but it seems like the Laker fans really haven't embraced LeBron James like
No.
he would have wanted. At least certainly not to the level that Cleveland and Miami did.
Yeah.
I mean, he even brought them a championship, but big deal. Kobe Bryant brought them championships. Shaquille O'Neal brought them championships. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson brought them championships. Wilt brought them championships. Like this is a storied franchise that has had
It's not
superstars
about
all
you.
throughout time. Most of them were homegrown guys,
Yeah.
not just coming out with, I guess, other motives in mind, like I said, the lifestyle and the off-court stuff, the podcasts, etc. And he did win them a championship, granted, for the first time in a while. They had been missing the playoffs several times in a row, but I think LeBron might feel like he's not being appreciated as much in LA
Oh,
for what he's done for the team as he should be. And if I'm a Lakers fan, I'm also just kind of like, you did way less for us than like what all these other superstars
oh
did. We're
and
just gonna embrace Luca as the future and move on with him as
it,
our main guy.
bring Jokic in 2027. But no, look, I look at the Cavs. If I'm a Cavs fan, I'm like, I'll take you back, LeBron. Like you if they bought him out and you didn't have to trade anything,
If it's a straight up sign and we don't have to give up
and
anybody.
you put him with this group of guys, I think it's a better group. I mean, and they're talking about Kevin Love signing back with the Cavs after he gets bought out. Like it's like a reunion. That'd be amazing.
It would totally change the style of play though, and like what Atkinson does. Like we talked about this team being like really team based, very
Yeah.
deep, everybody contributing. We know what kind of a system you have to run with LeBron. It's like he is the system. He's the ball handler. He's the ISO guy. Everyone has to go out and make threes while he drives in and kicks it out. Like it totally changes the way you play. So we might have to make a couple moves to fit an offense that's more according to that system because at this point I don't think LeBron's going to change the way he's
No.
played for 20 years now it's been. But LeBron, Mitchell, Garland, Mobley,
Allen.
I mean the East is kind of open right now with
Yeah.
like some of those injuries to the bigger teams. So
And also, going off the basketball stuff, I thought what was fascinating was Wembanyama said he wants to be a Spur for life, which you do not hear that anymore from young players. You really
no,
don't.
but I like hearing that. David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Victor Wembanyama.
Manu Ginobili, Tony
Yep.
Parker.
A lot of guys that were there forever.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. But no, yeah. So yeah, that was a good episode. Talking about the AC, obviously the Big 12. We talked about the ACC last week. There's a lot of great things happening in college football and in the NFL. Obviously, new moves are happening. Things are happening. Guys are still transferring, which I thought that was over, but it's weird.
Yeah, this whole Jake Retzloff thing is going to be
Yeah,
interesting. The way they're going about it with not being able to go to the portal, having to totally enroll elsewhere or re-enroll somewhere else and be a walk-on.
yeah. So it's a crazy time. We're going to talk about it obviously as well in the future. So please stay tuned. And football season's right around the corner, so it's going to be here before we know it. So, anyways, if you've loved this episode of the podcast, if you've loved watching it, listening to us, watching our faces, all that fun stuff, then go click that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. And also down below, I want you to comment what is the percentage you think LeBron James comes back to Cleveland, if at all? Do you think there's a possibility, and when do you think that would happen? And the second question I want you to answer is simply this: what is the coolest nickname that you either heard growing up or that have happened in your sport currently? That's your other question. And we'll maybe go over this in the future episode. But anyways, if you also love listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and click that favorite button. Make sure you put it, save it, so it's right there on their front screen as well. And I hope you guys have a nice, cool weekend. And until next time, we'll see ya.